Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I hope you can hear me and you can all see my screen. So in the next minutes, I will give you a general introduction of yFiles. Just a quick note, this webinar will be recorded and will later be available on our YouTube channel. That's yWorks Tube. And the presentation part will be approximately 30 minutes. And afterwards, we will have time for questions. I think you can ask questions in the UI. You can ask questions anytime, also during the presentation. But I will answer them afterwards in a separate part. So, okay. Let's start. So first of all, let me just give you a quick overview of what we're going to be hearing about today. So first, I'm going to give you a quick introduction of our company, which is called yWorks. Afterwards, I will go into detail what is yFiles, the product, our main product, and I will give you an introduction to the product family, because yFiles is not a single product, but it consists of a family of various products. And then we'll dive into the actual yFiles functionality. That will be the main part of the presentation. And I'll give you a summary of what happened this year at yWorks. And then we'll go a little more into detail for the developers. I'll tell you how you can utilize our developer resources to get the most out of it, and how you can get support when you are developing an application using yFiles. So, and then we'll come to the questions part. So, okay, yWorks is a company located in Germany, in southern Germany, in the town of Tübingen. It was founded in the year 2000, so we've been around quite some time. Basically, it was founded with the idea in mind to turn the graphing algorithms that were developed at the university in Tübingen into a usable product. We started from that, and over the years became one of the leading developers for diagramming solutions and libraries worldwide. We distribute our diagramming SDKs under the name of yFiles. In addition to that, we have some free software, also all about diagramming. First, the yEd software for desktop and yEd Live for the web, which is a general, free-to-use diagramming editor. And then we also have a newest edition, the Neo4j Explorer, which lets you explore any Neo4j database visually using our tool. So what is yFiles? First of all, yFiles is a software diagramming SDK. So it's a component that you can use in your application if you need some kind of diagram visualization or graph visualization of any kind. It's all about visualizing connected data. So as you can see here on the picture on the right, there are nodes and edges connecting these nodes. So that is yFiles all about. We provide automatic layout of this data, also graph analysis algorithms, and yFiles is available for different platforms and different programming languages. So just to distinguish what yFiles is not, it's not a ready-to-use application, so you cannot just install yFiles and use it, but you have to do some programming to include it in another application or to build up an application on top of yFiles. yFiles is also not about bar charts, pie charts, function plots, and the like, which you see on the far right. the one crossed out, but it's always about graphs. Graphs like in diagrams. Okay, so the yFiles product family. We have 3 main strains in our products. First, for Java technology, there are 2 separate products: yFiles for Java Swing and yFiles for Java FX. Then we support the .NET platform with yFiles.NET, which uses WinForms for visualization, and WPF. And currently, our main, our most important version of the library is yFiles for HTML for the web, which you can build web applications with. All of these products feature a common architecture. It's basically built out of 3 main blocks, which are automatic layout calculation, then there are the graph analysis algorithms, and then there's a part which is about the actual visualization, so getting the data on your screen. There are many possible business applications for yFiles. Basically, yFiles is generic, so it's not designed for a special business application or for a single business application, but you can customize it based on your needs to work basically in every enterprise environment that you want to support. These are just some examples which often you have some kind of graph visualization networking. Obviously, you want to visualize networks, information technology, enterprise business, life sciences, software engineering, and so on. You name it. So let's dive into the actual features of yFiles. Let's start with the layout part, which I guess most people are interested in. Maybe you start with some sort of unorganized data, like you can see in this image. You have all the nodes have random positions. It's not easy to grasp the information of this graph with the eyes if you look at it. So that's where automatic layout comes into play. So that's actually the same graph structurally, but laid out with a hierarchical layout algorithm. There is a large selection of different layout algorithms, which hierarchical layout is only one of. All of them are highly adjustable and customizable on various levels. So that reaches from simply setting some properties to customize things like perhaps the distance between the nodes or something like that. But you can also customize it on a deeper level. You can customize it based on your data or based off any information that you have. All our algorithms are state-of-the-art, high performance, and we don't have an inherent limit to the graph size. So basically, our algorithms work with any kind of graph, with any graph size. Though obviously, it will perform slower for larger graphs. So this is an overview of the main layout algorithms that yFiles contains. There's the hierarchical layout that we just saw. Then there's an organic layout, an orthogonal layout, a balloon layout, tree layout, and radial layout. So these are the main algorithms, but there are some subcategories, and so that's just the start of it. In addition to laying out the complete graph, there are edge routing algorithms. If you don't want to change the node position, but you want to route the edges. So based on different algorithms. So what you see in this picture here is bus routing. So all of these edges are routed along a common bus. And there's also polyline routing, which results in orthogonal edges or polyline edges, and organic routing, which routes the edges organically around the nodes. There are also automatic label placement strategies. So you can place node labels, like you see in this map example, or edge labels, like you see on the right. You can place these labels automatically so they don't overlap with other graph items. Then there's the graph analysis algorithms. We support path algorithms like shortest path, longest path, then sorting algorithms, clustering, centrality, and network flow, and many more. In this picture here, you see an example where the bi-connected components of a graph are highlighted. So that means that all the components that are connected, all the nodes of the graph that are connected with more than one edge belong to one component. And that's one of our algorithms, which just runs on this data, and the visualization is used to highlight the resulting structures. So yeah, I guess all of you have some data they want to visualize. So usually the first thing when you're developing an application is with yFiles is how to get your data into a graph visualization. So this is not limited to certain data sources, but you can use virtually any data source with yFiles. We have automatic data binding, so you can use a thing we call Graph Builder, where you just stuff in your data and then configure some properties how your data is built up, and then with just one method call, you create the graph structure from your data. And there's also a flexible graph creation API if you don't want to use the automatic way of creating the data, or if you have, if it gets more complicated, you usually use the graph creation API. So basically, there are no specific connectors for certain kinds of data sources, like, for instance, graph databases or stuff like that. But that's the part which you have to do yourself. So you have to write some glue code that creates the actual graph from your data. So once you have the data loaded into the graph component, you usually want to have some kind of interaction. There's, of course, navigation. You can pan and zoom the graph, and you can do that with the mouse or with touch. That's both supported by default. And you can even edit the graph interactively. You can create, delete, and edit graph items. Like we see here on this image, an edge is created interactively from one node to another. You can, there's built-in undo and redo support, and stuff like orthogonal edge creation, which lets you create orthogonal edges automatically, so that you don't have to drag the edges around so they get orthogonal, but you can create them orthogonally in the first place. And even if you edit them afterwards, they stay orthogonal. And there's snapping. That's basically magnetic lines that items snap to, or items snap to other items. So it's very easy to create a tidy looking graph without running an extra layout. So you can create a very organized graph by hand. I think most of you know this from graphics software. And there are events for each of these interactive gestures. So you can hook your own code into the interaction and do stuff like, for instance, display some message boxes when an item gets removed or something like that. So you can basically hook your own logic into the default yFiles interaction. Of course, all of this interaction is also customizable, so you can basically change the gestures to your likings. Another main part of the visualization is, of course, the styling, because you want the items, you want the graph to look. We want to control the looks of the graph. There are different ways to do that. First of all, there are ready-to-use styles for various use cases. For instance, shapes are supported by default. So you can simply create the graph items with different shapes and different colors. And you can also customize and extend these shapes. For instance, if you want little badges at the nodes, you can implement this on top of the existing styles. Then another great way of getting results fast is templating. This part usually uses some kind of mechanism that's specific for the platform. For instance, in WPF, you can create XAML templates. In yFiles for HTML, you can use SVG templates. So you can basically you just write a small SVG snippet that contains the graphics code for each node, and yeah, you have a node visualization very quick without having to deal with the actual yFiles logic or the actual yFiles API. So you just have to know some SVG in this case. This also supports data binding. So what we see here on the right is actually a template style. All of these graph items you see here use the exact same style instance or the same template. And the name is filled in with data binding. So each of these nodes have a person object associated, which has a name, and the name is automatically bound to the visualization. So that allows to do rapid prototyping very quickly, and also goes well with the graph builder way of automatically creating a graph. Okay, and last but not least, you can of course create custom styles in code from scratch. So you can basically control everything about your visualization, including interactivity stuff like hit testing and so on. So these are just a few examples of demo applications that we implemented on top of yFiles. So all of these examples use yFiles in the background, and that ranges from the first example is a Gantt chart. Then we have an isometric drawing, and also contains a sun key diagram and a map example. So this shows you how versatile the styles of yFiles really are. course, yFiles also comes with built-in I/O. The main format for exporting a graph is called GraphML. That's a standardized XML-based format for saving graphs that we use. So this allows you to persist every aspect of your graph, like also styling information, layout information, but also associated custom data to a GraphML file that you can exchange or save, or basically you can do everything with it you want. You can also export the graph to image files like SVG for really high quality, but also PNG, JPEG, etc. There is PDF export, and of course you can also print your graph. Also tiled printing, poster printing, and stuff like that is supported. So the graph-related features include grouping, where you can group items into different groups, and folding, which means you can collapse these groups into folders. And this allows you to reduce the complexity of a graph, to hide some information away in a folder. If the user wants, he can interactively expand this folder, so the information is back and available in the graph. Another strategy to reduce the complexity of a graph is filtering. Basically, you can filter out any kind of items without having to actually delete them. You can change the filter criteria at any time, so you can get the items back. This allows features like interactively displaying search results or stuff like that. There's also an automatic bridge insertion. I don't have a picture for that right now, but basically when two edges cross, you can automatically insert bridge visualization, so it's clear that this is an edge crossing, and you see which edge goes where. Then there are additional components on top of the normal graph visualization. There is an overview component where you see a small image of the complete graph with simplified styles, and there's a neighborhood view where you can display the neighborhood of a graph, or of a certain node. This means you see the nodes that are directly connected to the nodes, or maybe based on the configuration of the neighborhood view, you can also see 2 levels or 3 levels, and so on. Okay, so that was the features. That was just a quick overview. So as you can guess, if you start dealing with the details, there is much more hidden inside yFiles. So next I'm going to talk about what happened during this year. We did quite a lot of feature releases for all of our products. We released yFiles for HTML 2.1, yFiles for Java 3.2, yFiles WPF 3.1, yFiles.NET 5.1, and soon we will release yFiles for JavaFX 3.2. A quick note on the version numbers. Actually, currently all of these products, except for yFiles for JavaFX, are mainly on the same level. So the fact that yFiles.NET is version 5 and yFiles for HTML is version 2 just tells us that yFiles.NET is around much longer than yFiles for HTML. But yFiles.NET is feature-wise actually on the same level than yFiles for HTML and the other products. So with this feature release, we added some great things. We had drag and drop support for labels and ports. So now you can drag labels and ports from a separate like palette component into the graph. That was previously only possible with nodes and edges. We support labels at ports. Previously, labels could be only added to nodes and edges. So ports, just for clarification, ports are the connection points. The connection point of an edge at a node is called a port. So now you can add labels to that. The rendering order is now customizable. So you see in this picture here, on the left picture is actually the default behavior in the behavior in the old yFiles versions that renders labels always on top of nodes, on top of all nodes. So this was customizable before, but it was pretty hard to do. Now it's very easy to get the picture on the right, where each of the labels is rendered at node level. We have added interactive lasso selection tool, which is especially great for touch interaction. You can just swipe around with your finger and just select a bunch of nodes. And just for yFiles for Java, we've added the graph builder, which was already part in the other products. So now yFiles for Java also supports automatic graph creation with data binding. The layout algorithms were also improved. We improved the orthogonal layout. Now you can produce much more compact layouts in orthogonal style. We've added some subcomponents to hierarchic layouts. You can see this here. This means that you can lay out components of a graph with different layout algorithms, but the overall layout of the graph is still hierarchic. So this is great if you have substructures in your graph that you want to visualize in a different kind. Maybe you want a top to bottom layout overall, but there's a single component which you want to display left to right. So now you can do that. And we've added a completely new layout algorithm that's called tree map layout. I guess most of you know this from software that analyzes your data usage on your hard drive. So this lays out nodes of different sizes in this in this square manner that you see here in this picture. Yeah, so that's what were the main improvements. Of course, there's much more. We've added new demos to almost all products. We did bug fixing. So in this year, really a lot happened. Okay, let's take a look at the resources for developers that use yFiles. So where can you get information? That's always the crucial point. First of all, we have an API documentation that's available at docs.yworks.com. That's really a great tool. You should check it out. Basically, all the API members are there with descriptions and code samples, and it's very interactive. So you can do searches, you can do filtering, you can even search for usages of different types. So it's very helpful, and we as developers here at yWorks really use it a lot. So I can really recommend this. The API documentation also contains the developer's guide and the knowledge base. The developer's guide is great if you want to start with yFiles, or if you want to get an overview of a certain topic. So there are articles that explain parts of yFiles really into depth. So if you want to include a certain feature in your application, or if you want to generally start with yFiles development, it's always a good idea to take a look at the developer's guide and see if there's something, some kind of information that's valuable to you. And the knowledge base contains, basically answers to commonly asked questions. So we also do much support, and we always see what a lot of customers ask. So this is what we usually put in the knowledge base. Another great resource for learning yFiles is the Getting Started tutorial. It is online at live.yworks.com, which is for yFiles for HTML. But each of the yFiles products contains this tutorial in the package as source code. And this tutorial just starts from the very beginnings of just creating a simple graph component with one node to more advanced stuff like how do I set styles, how do I calculate a layout, and basically it covers the main parts of yFiles. And if you're done with that, there are two other tutorials, one about styling, or writing custom styles, and the other one about different kinds of application features that you can use in your application. So yeah, the yFiles package also contains really a great amount of source code demos. So if you want to develop an application and you have certain features in mind that you want to have in your application, you can take a look at different source code demos, find those features that you want to have, and during development you can pick out the code from the source codes and put it in your application. So that's usually a good starting point for developing a certain feature. The source code demos for yFiles for HTML are also all online at live.yworks.com. So you can look at them there and get an overview. yWorks also has a YouTube channel, as I already mentioned. We sometimes put up tutorial videos or videos about specific topics, and it's always worth checking that out. Also, the webinar will be uploaded there if you want to rewatch. So, and if you still have questions during development and you didn't find the answer in the API documentation or in the developer's guide, or if you have really fundamental questions and want to know how to implement a certain feature, you can always contact yFiles support. So that brings me to the next topic. How do I get support? The yWorks support crew is also basically the main developers. So you're supported not by some special support guys, but by the core developers themselves. And so you get support if you are if you are evaluating a yFiles product. You can always, I didn't mention that yet, you can always evaluate yFiles products for 60 days for free and play around with the full API. You get the full source code demos, and you can play around and see if it is a match for you. And during this evaluation period, we also give you extensive support. If you are already a customer and have bought yFiles, you get support if you have an active subscription. And of course, if you found a bug in yFiles, you can always report that to us and we will do our best to fix it. You can reach yFiles support at yWorks.com, or there are specific email addresses for each product. You get that when you evaluate or when you buy, you get all the relevant email addresses. So usually we answer requests very quickly within 24 hours, within working days. And we also have these guidelines how to write a good support request. So that's always a concern. We can help you best if you really put some effort in writing the support request. So we get all the information that's necessary to actually reproduce issues or to answer questions. Okay. So thank you for your attention. We've reached the end of our webinar. We have prepared a short survey. This will help us to make the yFiles libraries even better. If you can spare 5 minutes, it would be great if you could help us by filling out the survey. We appreciate your time. The survey will actually start after the webinar has ended. So if you leave the webinar, I think you have to click a button, and then you will be redirected to the survey. So, okay, I hope you have all enjoyed our webinar. Thank you for your time and have a great day and happy diagramming.